What is up, everyone? It's your boy Aaron, and today I am bringing you my top 10 shoes of the year. Now, I feel like my list is going to be a little different. I think I have some shoes that are similar that are going to appear on several lists, but I do have like a different approach to my top sneakers of the year list. And so, yeah, expect this list to be a little different, but with some consistencies. Now, some of the criteria that I use personally to develop my list is impact. Like, what did the shoe do to the culture, right? Obviously, that's not all. Second is the looks, right? Like, was it a good shoe? Did it have a good design, good colors? Like the overall look of the shoe, was that good? And last but not least is the story. So to me, the story is as important as the look of the shoe. There's some shoes this year that had amazing stories, amazing marketing behind them, and were kind of slept on. And so, again, just to recap, my three criteria are impact, look, and story. So that's kind of how I based my list. I know people include other things like hype or resale prices or things like that on theirs, just not me. Not important to me in deciding a top 10 shoe of the year, and I think I came up with a pretty good list. I want to start off with some honorable mentions. These are shoes that could be on a top 10 list, very deserving of being on a top 10 list. However, they're just not on my personal top 10 list. Very well deserving of a top 10 spot on any list. However, going back to my criteria, I just don't think that they scored high enough in all three areas or in one singular area where it was like, yep, this shoe met this criteria so well that I have to put it on my list. And you're gonna be surprised by some of these, but I thought I'd throw them out there as honorable mentions so that way you know that they were considered, although they didn't make the top 10 list. All right, number one on my honorable mentions list, and these are in no particular order, just throwing them out there. The Jound Bapestas. I thought this was a really good shoe. Obviously, the price tag that comes with every Bape shoe is kind of ridiculous. But this was a good shoe. I think it's definitely worthy of being in a top sneaker of the year category or list. Number two, the Joe Freshgoods Vans. This is a really clean collection. I want to throw this on there as an honorable mention just because we don't really talk about Vans in the sneaker of the year category, but Joey Freshgoods and what he's done with New Balance and other work that he's done definitely delivered with these Vans, and they are definitely worth mentioning in a top 10 shoe of the year list. This one I've seen on a lot of people's top 10 lists, but I don't necessarily think they're a top 10 shoe of the year. If I'm sticking and being objective to my own criteria, they could be on a top 10 list somewhere. And it's the Travis Scott Low Reverse Mocha Ones. I just think we've already seen the Travis Scott palette, like we've already seen this color design and color blocking multiple times from his shoes, and it's kind of just what you come to expect. So there's nothing really exciting or new about this to make it a top 10 shoe of the year. But, you know, obviously every Travis Scott has huge impact, beloved by the community. And so it's a good shoe, but I don't think necessarily a top 10 shoe of the year. Next one, this one you guys are gonna crucify me for because I was not a hater, but just definitely not someone who saw all the hype that was coming around the shoe. And it's the Jordan 1 Chicago Lost and Found, reimagined, whatever you wanna call them. When I was looking at my three criteria, I like the idea of the Lost and Found. These were in a basement somewhere and blah 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 blah, except for the fact that Nike literally is removing their product from a lot of these mom and pop shops or boutiques, and so it kind of was hypocritical. But it's a Jordan 1 Chicago. Like I don't see how we can put a shoe that's come out multiple times, that's been messed with a lot of times. It's probably the number one shoe that's been bootlegged. It's probably the, you know, other renditions of the Jordan 1 Chicago have been done over and over again. And so I just don't see how we can place this shoe as a top 10 shoe of the year, especially because we had so much this year that was new, that was creative, that was innovative. The Chicago ones or the Lost and Found Jordan 1s just don't do much for me. I don't know. And maybe it's just a personal opinion. Maybe it's just me. I know they're on a lot of people's list. They're very high on a lot of people's lists, but personally to me, they're an honorable mention, not a top 10 shoe of the year. Now this next Jordan 1 was close to making my list. I had it pretty high up on the list, and then as I thought about my list a little more and kind of curated it to be personal to me, but also, take into account how shoes did in the sneaker community, I'm surprised that it's not on more lists, and I'm surprised how easily we've forgotten it. But it's the Jordan 1 High Georgetown. This was a shoe that I felt was highly anticipated, that a lot of people were looking for, but it came out at the beginning of the year, and we've had so many releases this year that people probably forgot about it. It's probably, if people saw it, they're probably, oh man, that's a really good shoe. But because the way of the year has progressed and the way, we're just overwhelmed at this point with constant releases and so many collaborations, that I think this one was kind of put on the back burner. But I think it's definitely a shoe that's worthy enough to be on a top 10 list somewhere. I don't know. Do you guys think that Georgetown is a top 10 shoe of the year? Let me know. All right, now that we have the honorable mentions out of the way, let's take a look at my top 10 list. Now, I tried to order these as best as possible. However, I am going to acknowledge that any of these shoes are interchangeable. I'm not even set on number 1, but if I had to rank them or rate them, I would put them in this order. But I do recognize that they're interchangeable and anyone could be in another place. Let's start off with number 10. Number 10 is the Huff Dunks. I'm surprised at how little recognition these dunks are getting, especially in a dunk crazy era. I get that a lot of people are newer to the culture and maybe don't really know who Keith Hufnagel is, but it's not an excuse. So Keith, I'm going to do you right, and I'm going to have you on this list. May you rest in power. These met everything for me: impact, story, and look. Obviously, if you don't know the story, Keith actually passed away, I believe, battling brain cancer a couple years ago. And he was, you can call him a pioneer in this Nike SB culture, right? He has some of the most iconic Nike SB dunks. And this shoe not only made in commemoration of him, but it was just a dope drop. You didn't know what shoe you were getting. There was 2 different types of shoes, one honoring New York City, where he was born and raised, and the other honoring San Francisco, where he went and took his skate passion and really made his career. And so the fact that it was a mystery release, you didn't know which one you were getting, the fact that it was a 2-pack and you can get either New York City or San Francisco, and just the Keith Forever on the heel tab was beautiful. This is my number 10. I wish more people had it on their list. I understand why maybe they don't, but just the story itself, honoring Keith, such a great shoe. Huff Dunks are my number 10. At number 9, we have the Tom Sachs General Purpose shoe. Now, I love a lot of things about this shoe. One, it had great impact. Obviously, Tom Sachs is responsible for some of the most coveted collaborations with Nike in the last 10 years. The Mars yards go for stupid numbers online, and super rare. And I love that he came out with this shoe that was supposed to be a boring shoe, right? That was the whole marketing behind it. It's supposed to remind you that your shoes shouldn't be the most important thing about you, that they're essentially tools for you. In fact, it almost seemed as if it was reverse psychology, although I do think that Tom Sachs was genuine in his desire for the shoe and mass producing the shoe. Kind of subconsciously, it created a lot of hype and demand for the shoe. Now, there were 2 drops this year. There was the white pair and the yellow pair. The white pair is still going for a hefty price on the resale market, and in some sizes, so is the yellow pair. But I love this shoe. I love that it was accessible, that it's dropped multiple times. And one of the coolest images is people camping outside of Kohl's to get a shoe. It's just, that was cool to me. So, number 9 on my list, the Tom Sachs General Purpose shoe. All right, number 8 on my list. This is a shoe I haven't seen on too many lists. It's the Air Jordan 2 Chaton Rouge. And I'm probably not saying that right. I did take French in high school, so maybe a little bit that played in there, but this was a really dope shoe, especially in the year of the 2s, right? 2022, year of the 2s. We had so many Jordan 2s released. It feels like a million people had a collaboration with the Jordan 2 this year. And even so, I'm not seeing a lot of Jordan 2s on top 10 lists. We had so many cool ones that came out, from the Jordan 2 lows to the highs, but this one specifically for me is worthy of a top 10. The story behind it, the cuts, the African shapes and design inspiration. If you take a close look at the shoe, there's so many cool little details. The insole is so well done. The box, the fact that it's an African group in France, I think adds to the story of it as well. But overall, it's a really good shoe, and it's new. It's something we haven't seen before. And so for that reason, on my list at number 8 is the Air Jordan 2 Chaton Rouge. All right, number 7. This one I feel like is a common one. I feel like we've seen it on several lists in the top 5, top 10. But we have to give Joe Freshgoods some more love on this list and include his 993 New Balance collaboration. Now, what was really cool about this is that Joe himself stated that it was the end of an era at New Balance. And I know a lot of people initially thought that that meant this was the last Joe Freshgoods New Balance that we were ever going to get. But he clarified and let us know that it was just kind of the end of this color palette that he was using. A lot of his shoes have resembled this color palette, and he's just ready to move on. He's ready to do something a little different. And what a way to go, right? What a way to end this color palette and this kind of collaboration with New Balance. He's done so much good stuff with them, but this was a really good shoe. New Balance has been killing it this year. This is probably at the top of the list. This is probably at the top of their releases for this year. So number 7, Joe Freshgoods 993s. Number 6. Now this one is where I disobeyed my criteria a little bit. I didn't stick super true to it. Now in terms of impact, this didn't have a lot of impact as far as the community goes. It was kind of a quiet shoe. If you got it, you got it. If you didn't, you didn't. But there's not much hype around it. It's not one that, you've seen on many lists. But for me, it's probably the best looking shoe or the cleanest looking shoe of the year. It's the Prada and Nike Next Wave white colorway. Now this is a continuation of a collab that started last year in 2021. However, have you seen a cleaner shoe than this? I don't think so. You see the white with the gray/silver, the aged midsole. All the colors just work super well. And on an Air Max 1, chef's kiss. This was, for me, like the best looking shoe of the year, where if someone was wearing it and you saw them, you'd immediately be drawn to their shoe. Like it would just look good. It just looks good. I don't know what else to say other than it's a really good shoe. Number 5. This is one that I have not seen on a lot of lists, and maybe I'm a little rebel when it comes to this one. The Air Jordan 7 Trophy Room sits at number 5 for me. Now, I know Trophy Room is still kind of recovering from the whole Jordan 1 debacle where they were, backdooring. It's been proven. We know the story. And so I think there's a little stigma around them right now where they have to do a lot right before people can forgive them. Let that not distract from the fact that they executed this Jordan 7 perfectly. With one minor detail. Shout out to Sneaker Fetish. If you don't follow him on YouTube, follow him. He actually was the first person I saw online that pointed out that they had the date of the game wrong on the insole of the shoe, or on the tongue of the shoe, I believe. So that's kind of a big deal. The whole inspiration behind this shoe is a game, and then you get the date wrong and it's produced and it's sent out, and it's kind of like Nike was just like, oh well, like too late, the shoe's already done. But overall, man, just this shoe was perfect to me. Like, it's one of the best Jordan 7s. I love all the details. I love the color blocking. I know a lot of people said that it was just kind of like a reverse Olympic, but the material on the shoe, it just works. It's just a really good shoe, and I think it deserves a spot in the top 10. So my number 5, the Jordan 7 Trophy Room. Number 4. There's not a lot of people that have been campaigning for a shoe as hard as I've been for this one. My number 4 is the Jackie Robinson Dunks. I don't get why these aren't shown more love. Like, Nike did their thing with this shoe. The color blocking, the 42 all across, it just works. It's so subtle. The cream instead of white with that blue. Just kind of all goes together super well. And I felt like it was being disrespected. I don't know why this shoe isn't on many more lists. For me personally, it was the best dunk of the year. It was the dunk of the year. And obviously, anytime you're commemorating someone like Jackie Robinson for what they did and what they stood for, that should add a little oomph. That's the story part that shoes carry that are important to them. And so I just feel like this was left off of a lot of lists, and it definitely needs more love. To me, best dunk of the year, Jackie Robinson dunk, sitting at my number 4. So we made it to the top 3. What do you guys think of the list so far? All right, maybe a little different, maybe not exactly what you expected. We made it to number 3. This one's different. This one is one that I feel should be on everyone's list. We should be excited about innovation and new things in sneaker culture. And this brand is definitely the new brand of the year. They've made a splash in footwear that not any other brand has made in 2022. And that's Salomon. And my number 3 shoe of the year is, I have to read it because if not, I'm going to be super wrong. L'Art de l'Automobile. L'Art de l'Automobile Salomon ACS Pro Advanced. My French teacher is probably watching this, super proud of me. L'Art de l'Automobile and Salomon Pro ACS Advanced. Anyways, this was a 2-pack. This was such a clean shoe. I love the look of this shoe. I love what Salomon is doing this year. This was one of the better collaborations that we got. Arthur Carr actually has a really good interview with Complex Sneakers talking about this collaboration, but more importantly talking about his background and his love for cars and kind of how he came up. This ACS Pro is kind of a new model that's been, well, not a new model, but it's a model that's been reintroduced to the Salomon lineup. Attach that to everything that Salomon's been doing this year, the celebrities and people you've seen put Salomons on their feet. In order to acknowledge and praise that brand, I feel like you need to put one of their shoes essentially on the top 10 list. And I think this one is a top 3 shoe of the year. Both colorways, either one goes super crazy. Not really a shoe you can wear every day. Maybe you can, but a shoe definitely you go out, it catches people's attention. It has a dope story behind the collaboration. So my number 3 is the Carr L'Art de l'Automobile Salomon ACS Pro. Love that shoe. All right, my number 2, I feel like it's pretty straightforward. I feel like it's a common shoe. I feel like it's pretty much consensus right now that this is a top 3 shoe of the year. I don't wear Jordans like crazy, but I can acknowledge how good they are, or I can acknowledge them from afar. The Jordan 4 A Ma Manière. Now this release was kind of cool. Whatever your opinion on it was, inviting people to get active politically is important, right? And they did that. In order to join their raffle, you had to post a video of a candidate you were supporting, or I believe a candidate that you were supporting, and also talk about a topic in your area that's important to you. Those are conversations that need to be had. I know a lot of people want to keep politics out of sneakers, but sneakers are a luxury. They are a part of our life. These other topics are as important, if not more, to many of us. And so I love that they were inviting people to get engaged in a process that affects everyone. But overall, just the look of the shoe, I love this color palette from A Ma Manière. They've stayed pretty consistent with that burgundy maroon kind of muted colorways. And this one was just a really good shoe. It definitely belongs in the top 3, and it's my number 2, the A Ma Manière Jordan 4. All right, we're here at number 1. My number 1 shoe of the year. I'm gonna give you guys 10 seconds to guess. What shoe could it be? What shoe is Aaron's top sneaker of the year? Now, I'm going to be completely honest. This was as biased as it can get, right? But it's my personal top 10 list. And I felt like it met all criteria, right? My number 1 shoe of 2022 is the Nike and Off-White Air Force 1 Brooklyn. I know this might be like a more controversial number 1 pick. It's not as consensus. I don't see it on a lot of top 10 lists either. And I've been very critical of pages like Complex putting the Air Force 1 Louis Vuitton at the top of the list. But this one's different. This one was more accessible. This one actually had a sneakers drop. This one felt like people could get it. I'm from Brooklyn. It means a lot to me. Also, with the passing of Virgil, right, it definitely just added more to this release. And I think Virgil's Air Force Ones have become kind of iconic in sneaker culture. The one tone with the swoosh standing out or popping out from it have become kind of this iconic look from Virgil. But for me personally, it checks all the boxes. I think it had a huge impact. I think people getting an Air Force after the passing of Virgil was huge for the sneaker community. I think to this date, his Air Forces are some of the most sought after Virgil collaborations. I love the look of this shoe. Overall, man, I feel like this shoe, for whatever reason, had personal significance to me on top of being a very coveted shoe. So that's why my shoe of the year is the Off-White and Nike collab Air Force One Brooklyn. Thank you everyone for tuning in to see my list. I know it's not a super, I would say it's kind of a middle list, right? I think there's some things on my list that are consensus that a lot of people have included. There's also things on my list that probably none of you would have thought or expected or even had remotely close to yours. But that's how it is, right? That's how it goes. That's the beauty of sneakers, is that all of us have our own tastes, all of us have our own feelings about them, and ultimately we can decide for ourselves what our top 10 shoes of the year are. So thank you guys for tuning in. I look forward to seeing some of your lists in the comments. Go ahead and drop them below. Let me know which ones you would remove from my list, which ones you would add, or if you would change the order to my list. Anyways, as always, thank you for tuning in. Feel free to subscribe, like, and comment. Looking forward to post more consistently in this upcoming year.